Hello and welcome to a new review of this deck from my collection. This is the Eumig FL 900. Eumig was a brand from Austria. They made two cassette decks, the FL 1000 and this FL 900. This was actually not made by them. It was made by Alpage or Alpine, which was a Japanese brand, a Japanese high fidelity brand, and they made the model AL300, whereas Eumig sold the same model with FL900. And maybe the color was black on the Eumig brand and gray or metal in the Alpage brand. Okay, so this deck is a very good deck. It's actually very well built, quite full of features. It is 3-head dual capstan closed loop. We'll have a look at the mechanism in a moment, and we're going to have a review, or we're going to walk over the features. Some of them are not very common, but most of the features are common found in this era, and they are nothing very extreme special. Okay, so we have this power and eject button. The eject mechanism is quite nice. It's very well done. And there is a plate that hidens the inner parts of the front mechanism quite well. And if you press play, you'll see that there is a pitch control. Okay, so that's it. The controls of the transport are placed in this part, is this frontal part that protrudes from the front panel. You have to be very careful. It's very easy to bump something with this, and it could bend. Here we have one missing screw here. There are LEDs indicating the function. This doesn't work. And as you may hear, the mechanism is actually made with solenoids. We have one solenoid here on this side, and this is probably for the auto stop mechanism. And there's another bigger one down there. That's the main solenoid, and it's responsible for the movement of the head block. These old mechanisms had motors and solenoids, whereas the modern one had 3 motors. This is the motor for the capstan. You can see the belt. The belt maybe it's not the right belt for this type of mechanism, but it's nevertheless working quite well. You can see the flywheel, one of the flywheels, and there's the other flywheel visible here. And this other motor is responsible for the fast forward and rewind functions. Okay, so the mechanism has a mechanical counter. This mechanical counter has there are 3 buttons that you can use. So if you press memory, when you rewind, it will stop at 0. If you press memory and autoplay, it will stop and play when it gets to 0. And auto rev, I suspect that it's a function to rewind the tape automatically when when it ends, when it gets to the end of the tape. This era decks at this time had the 4 formulations for the tape selectable. You can select ferrochrome, which was then later dropped, and modern decks had only metal, chrome and normal, but this one has them all. It has metal, which was probably very new at the time of this deck. For the Dolby, you can have it off. You only have Dolby B. You can have it off, or you can have it on, but with or without filter. The filter would be the MPX filter that you select when recording from radio, because radio signals have a high frequency pilot signal that could mess with the Dolby circuit. You have the rec mute button, the tape source. We are going to switch to source in a while to record, and we have this selector for the meter function. You can switch from peak. It holds the peak of the music, and in this position the peaks don't hold and the meter drops faster. You see, it's not very noticeable. You have to maybe have louder music. Okay, this deck has this output knob. This was not usual in cheap decks or in normal decks. Only expensive decks had the output level. Maybe they have the phones level, but this knob controls also the output level. The usual timer function, and it has 2 microphone inputs that you can control with these 2 knobs, left and right. You can control the line input with these 2 knobs, and you can control the general master input, so you can mix microphone and line. And to record, you have these 4 knobs and this selector to perform the proper tape calibration, where you select the right bias and right level to perform the most perfect recording. We're going to have another tape, and we're going to record a bit just to show, because this deck is going to be sold. So I am going to start the music which is played in my phone. I switch to source. I turn this up. Okay, so we're playing from an external source, and we're going to record. Now we're recording. We should select Chrome, and then we're going to turn this a bit up, and we're going to switch between monitor and tape to listen to the difference, which maybe it's not very noticeable with the camera microphone. Okay, so now we're going to make a calibration just to show how it works. You select the frequency, high frequency or low frequency. You first adjust low frequency, if I don't remember wrong. Now let's listen to the tone. This is a 400 tone. You can hear it in source or in tape, and it's actually quite spot. I mean, it should get to the 0 level. I have to turn this channel a bit up, but not that much, and this other one also to 0. And once I have this calibrated, I switch to the high frequency tone, and this drops to -20, and I have to turn the bias. Well, I don't know if it's -20 or another level, but because this deck is very old and electronics don't work right anymore, and also the tape is very old, and I don't have the manual with me, so I don't really know how to at which level to set this. But anyway, with the high frequency tone selected, you change the bias and you can have more or less bias. If you raise the bias, the high frequency tones drop, and if you lower the bias, the high frequency tones go up, but also the distortion recorded. Once you have this calibrated, you get again this position. Okay, so now we're recording. Stop. There's a significant drop in quality. The deck is old, but it's actually much better than I expected in the first moment I took it out from the box, which has been storing it for, let's say, 12 or maybe more years. Right, so going back to the internals, this deck still has some difficult to work boards. This is the power supply and this is the logic board, or maybe I'm confusing them, and this is the audio board, which may be seen from below better. This is the mechanism as we have seen, and let's have this turn. So here we have the audio board. The audio board is quite easy to work on, except for maybe components that could be placed here, or maybe this board, or maybe these components. But I replaced those Dolby chips. That one of them was faulty, and it was an easy task to replace them. And the audio board is quite easy to work. There are a large number of knobs and resistors, variable resistors, and now I can't get the name of this in English. Inductance. These are variable inductance to adjust for levels and frequencies and so on. And that's all for this Georgius deck, which is going to be sold in the next weeks or days.